If you're into Game Boy, there's a good chance you'll like my new Neo Geo Pocket Color series too. Every Thursday I'm reviewing a new Neo Geo game. Just join the PO3 Patreon or become a channel member here on YouTube. Another in the illustrious list of Game Boy Player's Choice awarded games. These were a list of 31 titles that were awarded the Golden Ribbon and given a re-release. All of these sold over 1 million copies, but it seemed that that wasn't the only requirement. For instance, Golf got a Player's Choice award, but Alleyway didn't, despite selling about the same. DuckTales 2 got one, but strangely DuckTales 1 did not, despite selling more and being better. Pokémon didn't get one at all, even though it was by far the highest selling game on the system. And there's nary a Castlevania game on the roster. There don't seem to be any hard and fast rules for games to be given this award, but one thing that can be said for sure is that Wave Race is quite a surprising addition to the list, especially seeing as how it was only released in North America for its first 5 years of life. The reason behind such a delay in the European release is a simpler conundrum to figure out. It came 2 months after the PAL release of Wave Race 64 on the N64. For those who don't know, or haven't yet looked at the video for some reason, this is a jet ski racing game. There are 2 multiplayer modes, a championship whereby you race in increasingly more challenging seasons, and a slalom mode where the aim is to pass through the most checkpoints. You always race against 3 other personal watercrafts who all have basically the same skill level. There are 3 classes in each mode, of which only the first one, 550cc, is accessible at the start. Should you win the season in this smallest engine size, you unlock 650cc and finally 800cc. The number of races increases, 4 at first, going up to 6, and finally 8. You need to garner the most points when each season ends in order to progress to the next engine class. Slalom mode has the same number of courses, but they get progressively more complex as you go up. Should you win this entire national series, you'll unlock an even harder World Series that follows the same pattern. The controls are easy to pick up, but it's only after playing the game for some time that you start to pick up the additional nuances to getting the most out of the PWC. It's not simply a case of turning left or right, you need to learn the differences between the different engine sizes and how that affects turning, sliding, jump distances, and so on. You press B to accelerate and use A to use your turbo boost, which you need to build up as the race progresses. You won't have any at first, but it will fill over time. You can also collect an octopus, that looks more like a jellyfish, that causes you to flash for a bit. Ramming an opponent during this window allows you to steal some of their boost, which is very useful to do on the last lap. Also, you'll see dolphin pickups, which stop your boat sliding, giving a much tighter control. It also makes you impervious to track hazards for a while. Now, these hazards are numerous. Most obviously, there are pylons that look like huge boxes. You need to pass these on the track side. You'll get a smiley face if you do it correctly. There are buoys that delineate the track edges and also serve as hurdles to jump over in places. There are these sandy-looking tiles that are shallows. Riding through these drastically slows you down, so don't do it. Whirlpools spin you around without slowing you down. They'll toss you out in a seemingly random direction. I say seemingly because if you're astute, you'll actually be able to figure out which direction that might be, allowing more skillful players a difficult but definite trick shot advantage. Currents that look like arrows on the track will push you in the direction they're pointing in. There are also strategically placed ramps that can help you avoid these things. Pushing up as you go over a ramp gives you more range but less control coming out of it. Pushing down does the opposite. Collision is frequent when racing, and it slows you and your opponent down, so keep it to a minimum if at all possible. It isn't always, but the finesse here comes with learning how to use it to your advantage. The other riders pretty much always take the outer line when entering corners, so as to reduce the amount they have to drastically turn and thus reduce their slide. You can cut inside of them, but bear in mind you'll turn more sharply and slide a lot more. Turboing out of a corner does actually give you a modicum of control though. Again, learn how much of this to use. Avoiding opponents is even more pertinent in slalom mode. It behoves you to go for the gates that the others don't. If you just follow the field, you're quite likely to get nothing for your trouble as they'll just get to the gate before you. Make the most of the jumps here as well and approach gates at a diagonal if you can, as you won't know if they are horizontally or vertically facing until you reach them. Sometimes it's beneficial to avoid the first checkpoint and let the others scrap over it, allowing you to pick off 2 or 3 further away uncontested. Wave Race is a decent looking game. It didn't shock the world like its N64 sequel did, a game which really helped impress the benefits of 3D on mid-90s audiences, but it's decent enough. Some animation in the water might have been nice, as the whole thing looks a bit static. The boat roar and collision sounds are great, but they're at the expense of music, which is a slight shame. There's enough of a game to keep you playing as long as you want to. Unlocking all the various stages takes a good while. Plus, this game is 4-way adapter compatible, which anecdotally I can tell you is lots of fun, and probably where the game shines best.